Mistress took pregnant wife's wedding ring millionaire, didn't care until he saw her again. High above the streets of Manhattan, a single ring gleamed under the chandelier's glow. That ring, cherished by a woman carrying the next heir to a fortune, was about to be snatched away by a mistress with dangerous ambition. Whispers of infidelity lingered in every corner of the Harrington estate, but few dared to speak. When betrayal is woven into the fabric of wealth, looming consequences rise like a silent storm. Glimpses of tension in the corridor, hushed arguments late at night. This was merely the calm before the hurricane. As one heart shattered, another would beat faster, hungry for power. Clarissa Harrington gazed out the floor-to-ceiling windows of the luxurious penthouse. She shared with her husband, Alexander Harrington, a man of immense wealth and influence. The glittering skyline of Manhattan had once symbolized all the possibilities they could share. She was 6 months pregnant and wore an elegant, flowing maternity dress that accentuated the gentle swell of her stomach. In her hands, she clutched a cup of chamomile tea, hoping to ease the stress that had been mounting in her life like storm clouds on the horizon. Though she had come from a modest background, Clarissa believed in the transformative power of love. When she had first met Alexander at a fundraising gala in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, she had been charmed by his confidence, intelligence, and the kindness he initially showed. The Harrington family fortune was rooted in real estate investments, tech ventures, and an old shipping empire. Alexander stood at the helm of it all, seemingly unshakable in public, yet tender in private. Their whirlwind romance led to an opulent wedding at the Four Seasons Hotel in Paris, where Clarissa had been gifted a rare, vintage diamond wedding ring from Cartier. That ring was a symbol of her deepest dreams, a lifetime of fidelity, respect, and shared aspirations. But as the old adage goes, sometimes the higher the tower, the more dangerous the fall. Over time, Clarissa began to sense that the warmth between her and her husband was cooling. He worked late hours, traveled frequently, and came home exuding a restless energy that hinted at more than just business deals on his mind. Though she confronted him gently, Alexander always found ways to sidestep her questions. His manner turned evasive, and she was left to doubt herself, blaming stress or the looming responsibilities of impending fatherhood for his shift. One evening, as Clarissa tidied up Alexander's study, she discovered a solitary earring tucked beneath a stack of unopened letters. The design, a bold swirl of emerald and gold, was unfamiliar. Confusion rippled through her, then dread. When Clarissa held it up to the light, her heart pounded. She did not own anything like it. The sense of betrayal began to crystallize. A single earring seemed an absurd thing to unravel a marriage, but that tiny piece of jewelry felt like a bomb in her hands. She took a moment to reflect, standing there in the quiet hush of the study. Would she confront Alexander immediately, or would she wait, gather more evidence, and find a way to prove to herself what her instincts screamed? With the baby's health in mind, Clarissa decided to approach the topic delicately. That night, she calmly asked if Alexander might have had a woman come to the penthouse while she was at a prenatal appointment. He looked at her with mild surprise, then feigned ignorance, claiming that she was overreacting and that it was probably an earring left behind by an old friend or colleague. A creeping loneliness began to fill Clarissa's heart. The man who had once held her close and whispered promises of unwavering devotion was slipping away. Whenever she tried to speak her fears, Alexander dismissed them. At first, she believed her husband's words, wanting so desperately for their life together to remain intact, especially with a child on the way. Days turned into weeks, and in those suffocating moments of doubt, Clarissa decided to turn to the only person she trusted outside her marriage, her closest friend, Margaret White, a well-known fashion designer who had grown up with her in a small town in Massachusetts. Margaret, seeing how drained Clarissa looked, urged her to remain calm and watchful. "If something is truly happening," Margaret said firmly, "the truth will reveal itself. You deserve honesty, Clarissa, especially now. Don't let him gaslight you into believing you're crazy." During that vulnerable period, a new figure drifted into Alexander's world: Elena Walker. Elena was striking, tall, confident, with magnetic green eyes and lustrous dark hair that fell over her shoulders like a cascade of midnight. She had met Alexander at a charity function sponsored by Harrington Industries. Rumor had it she was a socialite with a checkered past, though no one could quite pin down where her fortune originated. She appeared in the social pages, flitting from one opulent event to another. She was a captivating presence, a flame that lured unsuspecting moths. At first, Clarissa had no inkling of Elena's significance, but soon enough, clues began to form a coherent and damning picture. Alexander would mention a meeting with a certain Miss Walker or leave on sudden trips that suspiciously corresponded with Elena's check-ins on social media. A private investigator might have solved the riddle more efficiently, but Clarissa still believed that if she approached her husband honestly, he would own up to whatever was happening. She felt a moral responsibility to fight for her marriage, for her child's future, before concluding that all was lost. That confrontation came one night after Alexander returned from a business dinner. The moment he stepped through the door, Clarissa smelled an unfamiliar perfume lingering on his suit jacket. It was heady, floral, reminiscent of jasmine, and definitely not hers. "Alex, we need to talk," she said, summoning every ounce of courage she had. He seemed tired and on edge. "Clarissa, whatever you think you know, you're exaggerating." She lowered her gaze to the wedding ring on her finger, turning it nervously. "Is there someone else?" she asked, her voice trembling. A long silence hung between them. Finally, Alexander sighed, raking a hand through his dark hair. "I don't want to fight. You're pregnant. Let's not complicate things." But Clarissa refused to be dismissed again. "Alexander," she said, more firmly, "we both deserve the truth." He offered no direct admission. Instead, he deflected, claiming she was being emotional because of her condition. Feeling both enraged and humiliated, Clarissa left him standing in the foyer. She sobbed in the bedroom alone that night, clinging to her belly, whispering promises to protect the child within her. Meanwhile, Elena Walker's presence in Alexander's life grew undeniable, at least from an outside perspective. She attended parties on his arm, smiling for photographers. She dined at exclusive restaurants he once frequented with Clarissa. Gossip columns began to speculate about her new, mysterious benefactor. The entire city seemed to know what Clarissa struggled to accept: Alexander Harrington was having an affair. In the weeks that followed, an uncomfortable arrangement took shape. Alexander no longer bothered to conceal his dealings with Elena. He even bought her an extravagant diamond necklace from Tiffany and Company. Elena flaunted it in social circles, and tabloids printed grainy photos of them, fueling rumors of Alexander's impending divorce. All the while, Clarissa was still living in the penthouse, wrestling with heartbreak, trying to maintain her composure for the sake of the child. Yet what struck Clarissa the hardest was not merely her husband's betrayal, but his increasing cruelty. He began to speak coldly to her, as if her emotional pain was an inconvenient burden. Whenever Clarissa confronted him, he brushed her off, reminding her that their prenup was airtight. "Don't test me," he said. "You'll have what you need, but if you try to take this public, I'll make sure you regret it." Clarissa, bearing a child, felt imprisoned, emotionally and financially. Each day, she contemplated leaving, but her obstetrician warned her of the stress's potential harm to the baby, and Clarissa was terrified of stepping away with no real plan or resources. The prospect of facing the world alone, pregnant, and without the Harrington fortune frightened her. She found herself in a cage, a gilded one, but a cage nonetheless. Then, Elena Walker began to make bold moves, creeping into the penthouse whenever she pleased. On more than one occasion, Clarissa encountered her in the living room or near the private elevator. Alexander continued to gaslight Clarissa, claiming Elena was just dropping off papers or discussing business investments, but Clarissa knew better. The tipping point came one afternoon when Clarissa discovered Elena in her bedroom, her personal, sacred space. The mistress stood by the vanity, fingering Clarissa's hairbrush and delicate accessories. Clarissa's heart pounded with such force she feared for her baby's safety. "What are you doing in here?" she demanded, voice shaking. Elena gave a slow, smug smile. "Alexander said I could wait inside," she replied, not at all ashamed. Her eyes flicked over Clarissa's pregnant form, a sneer twisting at her lips. "He told me you'd be out shopping. Don't get so upset." Fury and humiliation flooded Clarissa. The nerve of this woman to stand in the wife's bedroom as though she owned the place. "I want you out. Now." Elena shrugged elegantly, her slender wrists adorned with bracelets that likely cost more than most people's yearly salaries. "You might be Miss S. Harrington right now," she said, pointing dismissively to the ring on Clarissa's finger. "But he doesn't wear one anymore, does he?" Clarissa forced herself to stay calm for the baby's sake, but her anger demanded release. "Get out," she repeated, stepping aside to let Elena pass. Elena paused at the doorway, turning back with a condescending smirk. "For someone who claims to have it all, you look awfully miserable." In that moment, Clarissa felt the precariousness of her position as never before. She was pregnant, betrayed, and overshadowed by a woman who seemed unstoppable. As Elena left, Clarissa sank onto the edge of the bed, tears soaking her cheeks as she clutched her belly. She resolved then that she would not allow Elena or Alexander to break her spirit entirely. No matter what, she would protect her baby. What Clarissa did not know was that Elena's boldness stemmed from a newfound sense of power. Alexander was infatuated with her. He lavished her with gifts, introduced her to influential figures, and whispered sweet promises that one day soon, Elena would be the true mistress of his empire. Elena considered Clarissa nothing but a temporary inconvenience. That perceived inconvenience soon became a direct threat to Elena's plans, however. Because Clarissa carried the Harrington heir, Elena feared Alexander might never fully sever ties with his wife. She convinced herself that for her own security, she needed to push Clarissa out. More specifically, she needed to crush Clarissa's will to fight. Elena began orchestrating subtle forms of psychological warfare. She would move Clarissa's possessions, leaving the pregnant wife confused and doubting her own memory. She misled staff members into following her orders. She cancelled Clarissa's hairdresser appointments and meddled with her medical checkups. Slowly, she chipped away at Clarissa's sense of stability. Alexander, whose affections were fully consumed by the tempestuous allure of Elena, watched from the sidelines, seldom intervening. His ambition and pride overshadowed any empathy he might have once harbored for his pregnant wife. In truth, he wanted Clarissa to give birth safely, then sign the necessary paperwork so he could secure parental rights while also enjoying a future with Elena. He was too callous or too blinded by lust to realize how monstrous his behavior had become. Despite her heartbreak, Clarissa's one solace was the unborn child. She would place a hand on her belly each night, reminding herself that love still existed. The baby would kick gently, a burst of hope lighting her from within. Meanwhile, Margaret White remained her closest confidant. Whenever Clarissa broke down during phone calls, Margaret offered unwavering support, promising Clarissa there would be life after betrayal. But Elena Walker was far from finished. One late afternoon, Clarissa was in the penthouse library attempting to lose herself in a book. She needed a distraction, especially since her usual yoga class had abruptly been cancelled by someone claiming to represent her. That's when she heard footsteps. Expecting a staff member or Alexander, she looked up to find Elena standing there, arms folded. "Do you have a moment?" Elena asked coolly. Clarissa closed the book and fought the urge to lash out. "What do you want?" Elena's gaze swept the room, settling on Clarissa's wedding ring. "I've got some advice for you," she said. "You should leave Alexander. Take whatever settlement he offers. Go find a nice, quiet place to raise your child. This penthouse won't be yours much longer." Clarissa's stomach twisted. "You're delusional," she managed. Elena sauntered closer, unstoppable confidence in each step. "I'm practical. You, on the other hand, are clinging to a fantasy. He doesn't love you anymore. You're just the mother of his child." She paused, letting the words sting. "I'm the one he takes out in public. I'm the one he spends time with willingly. Why struggle?" Clarissa bit back tears, refusing to show weakness. "Because I have dignity." Elena reached out a hand and, to Clarissa's shock, ran her fingers along the wedding band. "That ring means less than you think," she said. "In fact, it might as well belong to me now." She turned, giving Clarissa a final, haughty stare before leaving the library. Though Clarissa longed to physically remove Elena from the penthouse, she knew Alexander would simply side with his mistress. She felt powerless, yet her determination not to let Elena's smug cruelty destroy her grew deeper. She told herself that once she gave birth, once she made arrangements for a lawyer, she would find a way out free of these entanglements. A week later, the worst betrayal yet occurred. Clarissa, feeling restless, wandered the penthouse corridors late at night. She had insomnia, common in her stage of pregnancy. She paused by Alexander's private office upon hearing laughter inside. The door was slightly ajar, and through the gap she saw Elena perched on Alexander's desk, swirling a glass of whiskey. Alexander was leaning back in his leather chair, obviously entertained by something Elena had said. Then Elena's eyes flicked downward to Clarissa's beloved Cartier ring, which she had taken off while washing her hands in the nearby restroom. Clarissa watched with horror as Elena picked it up from the desk, examining it under the lamplight. "I found this lying around," Elena said, chuckling. "What a tiny diamond for a Harrington, don't you think?" Alexander glanced at it, indifferent. "It's old family jewelry, that's all." Elena smirked. "You won't mind if I try it on, right?" Without waiting for permission, she slipped it onto her finger. It fits well enough, surprisingly. Clarissa's breath caught, panic surging. How had her ring gotten there? She recalled taking it off earlier that evening because her fingers were slightly swollen from the pregnancy. She'd placed it carefully on her dressing table, not near Alexander's office. The realization that Elena had gone into her bedroom to steal the ring struck Clarissa like a punch to the gut. Alexander shrugged, swirling his whiskey. "What does it matter? Clarissa doesn't even notice half the things I do anymore." Elena laughed, holding up the ring. "So it's mine now? If you want it," Alexander said coolly. At that moment, Clarissa felt an icy wave of betrayal. The ring was more than jewelry. It symbolized her vows, her love, and the precious memories she had once shared with Alexander. And here he was, handing it off to the very woman destroying their marriage. She gripped the doorframe to steady herself. The baby kicked inside her, a jolt that reminded her to protect her own well-being. Tears threatened to escape, but she held them back, turning and slipping away before either of them noticed her. She retreated to her bedroom. She wanted to run in and snatch the ring from Elena's hand, to scream that it was hers. But the heartbreak had hollowed her out, leaving her with no energy for another fruitless confrontation. She felt utterly alone, powerless to stop the mistress who had invaded every aspect of her life. The worst part was Alexander's complicity. The Alexander she had once loved could have never been so heartless. After a sleepless night, Clarissa woke to the cold reality that her treasured wedding ring was gone, taken by the woman who had invaded her home and her marriage. For the remainder of the week, Clarissa was a ghost in the penthouse. She avoided Elena, avoided Alexander, and barely found the strength to eat. She worried constantly about the baby, whose due date was drawing closer. Meanwhile, Elena flaunted the ring openly, sometimes tapping her fingers on a table just to make the diamonds catch the light, a reminder of her triumph over the pregnant wife. She even wore it to a lavish social event at the Plaza Hotel, where paparazzi snapped photos. A few eagle-eyed reporters noticed the ring on Elena's hand and speculated that it resembled an heirloom piece from the Harrington family. But, to Clarissa's astonishment, Alexander made no moves to correct those rumors. Margaret White attempted to stage an intervention upon hearing of these developments. She tried to coax Clarissa into leaving the penthouse. "Come stay with me," she pleaded over the phone. "I have plenty of room at my loft, and you can see another doctor if you're worried about not having Harrington money at your disposal." Clarissa nearly agreed. She was tired of the humiliation, the heartbreak. But the moment she thought of leaving, she received a chilling call from Alexander's lawyer, reminding her of the legal complexities of their marital agreement. If she left, she might jeopardize certain conditions that could affect her future custody. The fear of being cornered in a court battle, one that Alexander's expensive legal team could easily dominate, paralyzed her. So she stayed, a silent prisoner. The staff tiptoed around her as if she were a ticking bomb. Elena reveled in her newfound dominion. Alexander was too busy chasing deals and indulging Elena's whims to notice Clarissa's silent despair. Life inside the penthouse devolved into an oppressive hush, broken only by Elena's arrogant laughter and the soft sobs Clarissa failed to conceal at night. Weeks later, Clarissa's water broke prematurely. She was 7.5 months pregnant, fragile and frightened. The stress she'd been under took its toll, and she found herself in the back of an ambulance, gasping for breath as contractions ripped through her body far too soon. The last coherent thought she had before passing out from pain and exhaustion was that she might lose her child. In the hospital, Clarissa underwent an emergency cesarean section. A baby boy named Thomas Harrington was delivered tiny and underweight, but alive. Clarissa spent the next few days recovering. Alexander made only fleeting visits, mostly to sign documents or speak to the doctors. He expressed concern about the baby's condition, but seemed more inconvenienced than worried. Elena, of course, did not deign to appear at the hospital. Gossip columnists noted her presence at a Hamptons garden party during that time. As Clarissa cradled Thomas in her arms, tears ran down her cheeks. She had never felt such a poignant mix of love and desperation. She resolved, with renewed conviction, that she would not let the Harrington empire crush her or her child. Regardless of her heartbreak, her baby came first. Once mother and child were stable enough to return home, Clarissa found the penthouse even more suffocating. Alexander had given Elena the freedom to redecorate portions of the living area, presumably in the name of modernizing the space. Freshly installed was a painting by a famous contemporary artist that Elena adored, an eyesore that replaced Clarissa's beloved family heirloom painting. Elena had also rearranged the furniture, removing the rocking chair Clarissa had bought for the baby's nursery. The staff said Elena had deemed it ugly. Exhausted from sleepless nights tending to Thomas, Clarissa confronted Alexander. "Enough is enough," she said, voice trembling. "I will not let her treat our home like it's hers." Alexander shrugged. "It's just furniture, Clarissa. Don't make this a bigger deal than it is. You have a healthy baby boy, focus on that." Anger exploded within her. "A bigger deal? She threw out my nursery chair. She has my wedding ring. She is taking everything from me, and you stand here doing nothing." He waved a hand dismissively. You're hormonal. Stop making a scene. And with that, he left to meet Elena for a lunch date. Clarissa realized she was truly alone, battling for dignity, for a future for her child. She called Margaret once more, and this time she decided she would take some steps to secure her own independence. First, she quietly contacted a different legal firm, one that specialized in high-stakes divorces, known for their discretion and formidable expertise. She also began setting aside small sums of money that Margaret helped her funnel into a new account, away from Alexander's prying eyes. All the while, Elena's arrogance soared. She believed she had won after all. She had Alexander wrapped around her finger and wore Clarissa's ring as a twisted trophy. Clarissa avoided any direct confrontations, biding her time, focusing on the baby's well-being. She found an ally in the penthouse staff, an older housekeeper named Dorothea. Disgusted by Elena's antics, Dorothea helped Clarissa reclaim small personal items that Elena tried to discard. Dorothea would also secretly hand Clarissa receipts or financial records that revealed Alexander's transfers to Elena, valuable evidence should Clarissa need it in court. Bit by bit, Clarissa began building her quiet arsenal, determined to leave this toxic environment on her own terms. But fate had more twists in store. One stormy night, Alexander and Elena threw a lavish cocktail party in the penthouse. They invited powerful investors and socialite friends, people who could expand Alexander's influence and elevate Elena's status. Clarissa stayed in her bedroom with Thomas, trying to remain invisible. The baby fussed, disturbed by the noise of clinking glasses and loud conversation. Around midnight, Clarissa tiptoed out to get more formula from the kitchen. She hoped the party had died down, but to her surprise, the event was still in full swing. She tried to make herself as inconspicuous as possible, slipping through the fringes of the crowd. That's when she overheard a conversation that would shake her to the core. Standing in the corner, Elena laughed with a couple of socialites, swirling a glass of champagne. She boasted about her upcoming shopping spree in Milan, courtesy of Alexander. Then she dropped her voice. He's also about to close a deal that'll leave Clarissa with almost nothing, she whispered, her tone glacial. He found a legal loophole in their prenuptial agreement. Clarissa will walk away with peanuts. Poor thing. But that's what happens when you're blind to reality. A jolt of panic coursed through Clarissa. She quietly retreated before Elena or her companions spotted her. Her baby would be left with nothing if Alexander manipulated their finances in such a way. She realized that time was running out. She could no longer remain passive and let them rob her child's future. She hurried back to her room, mind racing. Gathering her baby in her arms, Clarissa whispered, "It's you and me against the world, little one." She decided that as soon as the party ended and the penthouse was quiet, she would pack her essentials and leave. She would flee to Margaret's loft and figure out the rest. Anything was better than subjecting her child to this nest of deceit. However, as she began to gather the baby's things, her phone buzzed. It was Dorothea. She texted, "They're on to you. Be careful." Clarissa's heart hammered. Did Elena or Alexander realize she might run? The sense of urgency escalated. Clarissa began stuffing diapers, formula, and baby clothes into a discreet bag, all while Thomas dozed in his bassinet. She knew that if Elena or Alexander caught her in the act, they might retaliate. She tried to quell her panic, repeating to herself, "Stay calm. For the baby's sake, stay calm." An hour later, the noise of the party dwindled. Clarissa peered out of her door, scanning the hallway. Most of the guests seemed to have left. Then she heard Elena's voice near the front entrance, thanking people for coming. Alexander's voice chimed in, sounding tipsy and in high spirits. Now, Clarissa thought, is my chance. She slipped into the corridor and made for a side entrance that led directly to a service elevator. She prayed it would remain empty. Thomas started whimpering, as if sensing his mother's tension. She gently soothed him, pressing the button to call the elevator. Just then, footsteps. Clarissa's blood froze as Elena emerged from around the corner. She was still in her glittering cocktail dress, the stolen wedding ring glistening on her finger. Her gaze locked on the diaper bag and Clarissa's anxious posture. "What do you think you're doing?" Elena demanded. Clarissa's eyes flashed with anger. "I'm done with this place." Elena stalked toward her, features twisting in scorn. "You can't just leave." "Alexander." "I don't care about Alexander anymore," Clarissa hissed, one arm protectively cradling Thomas. "I'm leaving, and there's nothing you can do to stop me." The elevator dinged open. Clarissa tried to hurry inside, but Elena lunged, grabbing Clarissa's arm. Thomas cried, alarmed by the jolt. "Let go," Clarissa spat. Elena's nails dug into Clarissa's skin. "You're not taking that child away," she hissed. "You think Alexander will let you? That baby is his heir." Clarissa wrenched free, stepping into the elevator. "Watch me." In that instant, Elena snatched at Clarissa's bag, trying to prevent her from leaving. Clarissa fought back, struggling to keep her balance. The elevator doors began to close. Desperate, Elena aimed for something to truly shock Clarissa. She reached out and grabbed at Thomas. Horror filled Clarissa as she twisted her body to shield her child. The elevator doors slammed shut with a metallic thud, forcing Elena to recoil at the last moment. Inside the elevator, Clarissa trembled, tears streaming down her face. She pressed the button for the basement parking garage, her heart pounding so loudly she feared it might burst. She had no idea what awaited her outside, but anywhere was safer than that penthouse. She fled into the night, calling Margaret to pick her up. Margaret arrived in her sleek SUV, helping Clarissa strap in the baby. Clarissa's cheeks burned with a mixture of relief and terror at what she had just done. "I can't go back, Margaret," she said brokenly as they sped away. "I won't," Margaret nodded, glancing worriedly at Thomas's tear-streaked face. "We'll find a way to protect you," she assured. "You and the baby." For several months, Clarissa lived in Margaret's guest bedroom. She hired a reputable divorce lawyer who had no fear of tangling with the Harrington machine. The arrangement was difficult. Clarissa missed the financial security and worried about how to pay for Thomas's medical needs, as he required ongoing checkups and specialized care. But she clung to the small triumph of freedom. Alexander's response was initially furious. His lawyers bombarded Clarissa with calls and letters, threatening everything from custody battles to defamation suits if she didn't return. He wanted to ensure the heir remained under his control. But Clarissa's legal team held firm, pointing out Alexander's infidelity, Elena's harassment, and the numerous ways Clarissa's health and the baby's well-being had been jeopardized. Meanwhile, Elena Walker reveled in her newfound freedom as the undisputed companion of Alexander. For a time, she and Alexander graced every social event, flaunting their relationship without shame. Elena believed she had ascended to the pinnacle of power. She had Clarissa's ring, a trophy that seemed to confirm her victory. She boasted to her friends that soon she'd be the new Mistress Harrington, that Clarissa's baby would be an afterthought as Alexander set up a trust fund and moved on. But karma has a way of creeping up when arrogance blinds people to their own vulnerabilities. Unbeknownst to Elena, her success hinged on Alexander's unwavering wealth. And Alexander's empire, though vast, faced emerging challenges. A major real estate deal began to sour, tying up a significant portion of his assets. A labor dispute in his shipping line threatened to cause massive losses. Investors questioned his reckless spending on lavish gifts for Elena, perceiving it as a sign of poor judgment. The cracks in his once impenetrable fortress deepened. Moreover, Elena had grown greedy. She pressured Alexander to buy her extravagant properties in different cities, fund her private jet trips, and bankroll a fashion line she wanted to start. Alexander struggled to keep up appearances, funneling money in ways that strained the liquidity of his businesses. Banks grew concerned, stockholders demanded accountability, and rumors circulated that the Harrington Empire might be on precarious footing. As Alexander's attention turned to damage control, he became less enamored with Elena's constant demands. Tension flared. She blamed him for not delivering the lifestyle she believed she deserved. He became weary of her incessant spending. The fights escalated, culminating in nights of screaming matches that rattled the penthouse walls. The staff cowered, powerless to intervene. Elena responded by indulging in the social scene on her own, attending parties without Alexander. She flirted with wealthy entrepreneurs in hopes of hedging her bets. Gossip columns hinted that Elena Walker, the infamous mistress, might be searching for a new sponsor. The tabloids used words like gold digger, though always in whispers. Alexander, realizing the damage to his reputation, scrambled to salvage his finances and avoid catastrophic legal ramifications. His attorneys advised him to minimize negative publicity and settle the divorce with Clarissa swiftly and quietly. If he dragged it out, it would tarnish his public image further. Investors did not want their money tied to an executive entangled in a salacious, drawn-out scandal. Thus, the stage was set for the day Alexander and Clarissa would meet again, face to face, after months of separation. Their lawyers arranged a mediation session in a stately conference room at a law firm overlooking Central Park. Clarissa arrived first, dressed in a simple yet elegant black dress. She felt a flutter of nerves. It was the first time she'd be seeing Alexander since that dreadful night she fled the penthouse, clutching Thomas to her chest. Her hands trembled slightly, but Margaret stood behind her, offering silent reassurance. Clarissa drew in a deep breath, reminding herself that she was no longer the terrified pregnant wife who cowered in hallways. She was a mother now, fighting to secure a future for her son. Alexander entered minutes later, flanked by his legal team. He looked thinner, his once confident posture fraying around the edges. For a moment, their eyes met. Clarissa felt a pang of sorrow for what might have been, for the love they once shared. But the memory of betrayal and cruelty flared just as quickly, stealing her resolve. The mediation began. Clarissa's lawyers laid out the terms: child support, spousal maintenance, division of assets. Initially, Alexander's team countered with arguments about the prenup, but Clarissa's counsel presented evidence of Alexander's infidelity, emotional abuse, and negligence. There were documented testimonies from staff who had witnessed Elena's harassment and Alexander's callous behavior. The hearing grew tense. Alexander shifted uncomfortably as Clarissa recounted, in a calm, measured tone, the impact of his actions on her health and the well-being of their child. Alexander's eyes flickered with something akin to guilt. He cleared his throat and glanced away, struggling to maintain his composure. "I never wanted to hurt you or the baby," he murmured at one point, unable to meet Clarissa's gaze. When the session neared a conclusion, the mediator proposed a settlement. Clarissa would receive a fair portion of funds, a property in her name, and full custody of Thomas, with visitation rights for Alexander under specific conditions. With his finances in a precarious position, Alexander's lawyers strongly advised him to accept. A drawn-out court battle could devastate him further, both financially and in the public eye. He hesitated, glancing briefly at Clarissa. "Fine," he said, voice strained. "Let's finalize it." He signed the documents, a resigned air about him. Clarissa also signed, her heart pounding with relief. She would finally have a clear path forward. She could raise Thomas in peace. Yet even now, part of her ached for the dream she had once cherished: a loving marriage, a united family. But that dream was long gone. Before leaving, Clarissa paused by the window, staring at the lush expanse of Central Park. Alexander came up behind her, hands shoved in his pockets. "I know I can't undo what I did," he said quietly, a trace of remorse in his voice. "But I hope, someday, you'll forgive me." Clarissa turned, meeting his eyes, those same eyes that once made her melt. "Forgiveness is a process, Alexander, but I will never forget." With that, she walked out, Margaret at her side. The final break from the Harrington penthouse was complete. No more midnight tears, no more stolen jewelry, no more manipulative cruelty, yet one piece of unfinished business lingered: the wedding ring. Elena still flaunted it, at least as far as Clarissa knew. The settlement papers made no mention of it, and Clarissa hadn't insisted on its return because she assumed it was lost forever, another casualty of betrayal. In truth, she had mixed feelings. The ring once symbolized a love that had proven false, and part of her wanted to let it go. Yet the violation stung. Clarissa refocused on her new life. She purchased a cozy apartment near Margaret's loft, adorning a bright nursery for Thomas. She found modest happiness in daily routines, feeding her son, watching him grow, bonding with supportive friends. She also started freelancing as a consultant in public relations, using her experience from organizing charity galas during her marriage. Time passed, and rumors swirled. Alexander and Elena's relationship spiraled downward. Investors had lost faith in Alexander's leadership, leading to the downsizing of several Harrington ventures. Instead of the golden future Elena had envisioned, she was saddled with a man struggling to keep his empire afloat. She tried to continue her lavish lifestyle, but the money stream narrowed. Alexander, embittered and stressed, blamed Elena for pushing him into extravagant spending. Their once passionate affair turned into a battlefield of accusations and venom. One fateful day, Clarissa needed to attend a charity event for a children's hospital. She was part of the organizing committee, having found purpose in assisting families with premature infants, her own experience fueling her compassion. She dressed elegantly in a sleek navy gown, leaving Thomas in Margaret's capable care. Upon arriving at the venue, a grand ballroom, donated by a philanthropic organization, Clarissa mingled, greeting fellow committee members, donors, and hospital staff. Then her heart jolted when she spotted a familiar figure, Alexander Harrington. He was standing near the entrance, looking haggard. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his once pristine suit looked slightly rumpled. He wore no tie, and his hair had a disheveled air. It was a stark contrast to the polished millionaire she had married. Their gazes met. Awkward tension flickered. Clarissa mustered a polite nod. She wouldn't let the past overshadow her present responsibilities. Alexander lingered by the bar, as though unsure if he should approach her. As Clarissa made her rounds, greeting donors, speaking briefly on stage about her personal story with Thomas, she felt Alexander's eyes on her. When she stepped off stage, he approached, clearing his throat. "You spoke beautifully," he said quietly, searching her face for any sign of warmth. Clarissa offered a polite smile. "Thank you." An uneasy silence hung between them. Then Alexander sighed. "You look well. How's Thomas?" Clarissa lifted her chin. "He's thriving, growing so quickly." Alexander seemed genuinely relieved. "I'm glad to hear that. Listen, Clarissa, the first no, everything I say now probably means nothing, but I'm truly sorry for what happened. My life, it's in pieces." Clarissa blinked, taken aback by his candor. "I'm sorry for that," she said, surprising even herself. "But you dug your own grave, Alexander." He nodded, eyes clouded with regret. "You're right." Before their conversation could continue, a sudden commotion drew their attention near the entrance. Elena Walker had arrived, though she looked very different from her usual glamorous self. She wore a flashy dress, but her face showed signs of stress, lines of desperation around her eyes. She scanned the crowd and spotted Alexander storming toward him. People turned to watch, sensing drama in the air. "Alexander," she hissed, her voice carrying. "Why are you ignoring my calls? We need to talk now," he grimaced. "Elena, this is not the time or place." She scoffed, eyes blazing. "When is it ever the right time for you these days? You're always dodging me." Her gaze flicked to Clarissa. "Oh, of course. You're too busy ogling your ex-wife to remember your obligations." Clarissa stepped back, wanting no part of the argument. Onlookers whispered, astonished that Elena would cause a scene at a children's charity event. But Elena was past caring about decorum. She latched onto Alexander's arm, glaring. "You promised me a future," Elena spat. "You said you'd pay my credit card bills, help me launch my boutique in Milan." "You've bled me dry," Alexander shot back, face flushed. "I have nothing left to give." Elena laughed bitterly. "That's not what you told me when you were in my bed, giving me that pathetic woman's ring." She pointed at Clarissa. "She's the cause of your problems, isn't she? If you had fully cut her off, if you hadn't wasted your money settling with her, we'd still be fine." Clarissa's jaw tightened. Pathetic woman's ring. The memory stung. She fought the urge to respond, focusing instead on the fact that Elena still wore the ring. It gleamed on her finger under the ballroom's lights, a cruel reminder. Alexander grabbed Elena's wrist. "Don't you dare speak about Clarissa that way," he growled, surprising both Clarissa and Elena. "You have no idea the damage you've caused." Elena yanked her hand back. "Me? Don't you dare shift blame on me. You're the one who welcomed me in." Their voices rose, echoing through the ballroom. Mortified staff tried to usher them away, but it was too late. Spectators watched, riveted. Finally, a security guard approached, politely requesting they take their dispute outside. Elena exploded in fury. "Don't touch me!" She tore away from the guard, then turned to Alexander. "If you won't pay my bills anymore, I'll pawn this worthless ring you gave me." She brandished Clarissa's stolen wedding ring for all to see. "It's probably not worth half of what you owe me, but it'll do." Clarissa felt a strange mixture of vindication and heartbreak. To see her cherished wedding ring, the ring that once symbolized her dream of forever, reduced to a mere bargaining chip in Elena's tantrum, was painful beyond words. Alexander's eyes flicked to Clarissa, and for the first time that night, she caught a glimpse of true remorse in them. "That ring," he said, voice hoarse, "was never mine to give." Elena's sneer widened. "Well, I have it now." She started tugging at the ring, intending to remove it. She yanked once, no movement. She tried again, more forcefully, but the ring seemed stuck. Growing frustrated, she pulled a third time, her face reddening. The ring refused to budge, caught on her knuckle. A wave of embarrassed laughter rippled through the onlookers. Elena's cheeks flamed. She marched to a nearby champagne bucket, dunked her hand in the ice water, and twisted viciously. At last, the ring slid off, leaving a red mark around her finger. She flung it at Alexander's chest. "There, take it. Useless piece of junk." The ring bounced off Alexander's shirt and clattered to the floor. For a moment, time seemed to slow. Everyone stared at the diamond ring as it rolled across the marble tiles, finally coming to rest near Clarissa's feet. She bent down, heart pounding, and picked it up. For a split second, she just stared at it in her palm, remembering the day Alexander slid it onto her finger in front of family and friends, promising a lifetime of devotion. Elena, seething with humiliation, stormed out of the ballroom, leaving everyone gaping. Alexander stood there, speechless. Clarissa slowly closed her hand over the ring. A hush fell over the crowd. Tears pricked at Clarissa's eyes, but she blinked them back. At length, she walked over to a donation box set up for the children's hospital. She paused, gazing at the ring one final time. It symbolized so many broken promises, she thought. Then, with a resolute gesture, she dropped the ring into the box. A flurry of gasps erupted. Some might have seen it as a dramatic flourish. To Clarissa, it felt like liberation. Alexander stepped forward, stunned. "Clarissa," she held up a hand, halting him. "It was mine, but it lost its meaning the day you gave it to her. I'm done letting it weigh me down." For a beat, Alexander looked like he might argue, but he saw the conviction in Clarissa's eyes. He nodded slowly, accepting her choice. As the staff and security discreetly guided bystanders to resume the event, Clarissa turned away from Alexander, holding her head high. She didn't need that ring any longer. She had already found a greater treasure, her son, her independence, and her self-worth. No diamond could ever compare. In the aftermath, gossip columns feasted on the story of Elena's meltdown, the fall of the once haughty mistress who had tried to rule the Harrington penthouse, and the quiet grace with which Clarissa reclaimed her dignity. Paparazzi photos captured Clarissa dropping the ring into the charity box, an act that many deemed symbolic of triumph over betrayal. Donations to the Children's Hospital soared in the following weeks, inspired by what tabloids called the ring that freed her. Elena Walker drifted into obscurity, her finances precarious without Alexander's backing. She attempted to latch onto another wealthy patron, but her reputation for greed had preceded her, and doors began to slam shut. The last Clarissa heard, Elena had been spotted in less glamorous social circles, rumored to be pawning designer bags to pay her bills. Karma had indeed come calling. Alexander Harrington spent years rebuilding his fortune and his name. He quietly visited Thomas on agreed-upon weekends. Over time, his relationship with his son became one of genuine care, though the bond he had once shared with Clarissa would remain irrevocably broken. Clarissa thrived. She turned her experiences into a motivational impetus, speaking at women's groups about resilience and starting over. She continued her consultancy work in public relations and eventually partnered with Margaret White to organize charity galas worldwide. Though the heartbreak she had endured left scars, she discovered an unbreakable strength within herself, one that no ring, no fortune, and no betrayal could ever tarnish. She had learned that in the end, true wealth wasn't measured in diamonds or penthouses, but in love, self-respect, and the freedom to pursue a life of peace and integrity. And as Clarissa cradled her growing son each night, hearing his playful giggles, she felt certain that while the mistress might have taken a ring, she could never steal what truly mattered. True strength often shines brightest after the hardest fall. Clarissa's journey from a trapped pregnant wife to an independent, empowered mother shows that betrayal can pave the way to triumph if we refuse to let it define us. Every twist in her story, every stolen treasure, cruel remark, and shattered promise led her closer to discovering her own worth. If this tale stirred your emotions, gave you hope, or reminded you of the power of self-respect, your support can carry this message even further. Help others realize that no obstacle is insurmountable by sharing this video, letting them see how heartbreak can transform into resilience. Tap that like button if you believe in second chances and new beginnings. And if you want more stories that highlight the strength of the human spirit, subscribe to this channel. Together, we'll keep shining a light on tales of courage, healing, and renewal.